Greetings and welcome back to the Aural Mess podcast. I'm joined again this week by Phil DeCriscio. Hey, Phil.
Hey, how you doing, Chad?
Good, man. So we're going to pick up where we left off. You know, the first episode that we did together was favorite albums, not necessarily in any order or, you know, any ranking necessarily, but just favorite albums of you know, the thousands that we probably all listen to. So we didn't get to finish. Hence, you know, you're back again. And I think we have two more albums each to get through. So
For sure. Sorry for the yapping, as the young people say, but I love yapping. I'm from the country of yap, or whatever meme I posted the other day, and I'm here to just gush about things I love. And today is more of my favorite albums.
Nice. Well, no, it shows. And, you know, the yapping is not a bad thing. You know, I could talk for hours and hours and hours about this stuff, although I think people wouldn't listen, you know, after a certain point. So, you know. Cool. Well, why don't we jump in? Why don't you go first? And okay. Which one are you going to tackle?
So, I was trying to approach albums, aside from Asia, when I got into them. So this first album I'm going to talk about, I got into during college, and it's Miles Davis's Birth of the Cool. Here is the Hal Leonard actually published the score of all the parts, and they kind of took all the parts that they found and published them into a full score. And here's the CD, and this is an album that I listen to a lot. It has more to do with what it represents to me, more so than the music involved. At this point in Miles Davis's history, he was out of the Charlie Parker band, and he was trying to do his own thing. This is before the first grade quintet. This is way before the second grade quintet, and he assembled a group of 9 musicians. It was Miles Davis Nonet, and his idea at this time, and he was listening to a lot of with Gil Evans. He was spending a lot of time at the Gil Evans apartment, listening to a lot of Prokofiev, Stravinsky, a lot of these classical composers. So his idea at this time was to take treble and bass versions of every instrument and assemble them into a group. So you have alto saxophone and baritone saxophone. You have trumpet being a conical brass instrument, and trombone being also a conical brass instrument, but a bass instrument. You have French horn and tuba, once again being conical and bass, and then you have your standard rhythm section of piano bass drums. And this was his idea, was just to take these high and low versions of instrument families and kind of create something with that. And he was in his 20s, maybe, when he thought of that. And I came to this album as a tuba player, trying to get into jazz, and there's not many jazz tuba players.
Right.
In my high school jazz band, my band director, my second band director, was a tuba player, so he really encouraged me to kind of reach out, and he was a tuba player who loved jazz. And in my high school jazz band, he would hand me like 4th trombone parts and said, "You're not playing that. Go take the piano part. Go take the bass part and figure something out." And I guess I did too. And
band director did that too, right? And we can talk about that, but yeah, keep going.
So I was ingratiated into jazz as a tuba player, not as a traditional jazz instrument, right? Not a saxophone, not a trumpet, not a trombone. But I always felt this closeness to the jazz community. And there's jazz tuba players, your Howard Johnsons, and Bill Barber, who's on this album. And I was like, that's fine and that's good, but there's no Miles Davis of the jazz tuba player. There's no Charlie Parker. There's no stud, for lack of a better term.
Well, it's not a lead instrument, right? So I mean, it's hard to get to that level, I think, when you're sort of relegated to being like an accompaniment, really.
For sure. And I've always been an ensemble tuba player. I've always felt comfortable like playing my whole notes in the back of an orchestra or back of a band. But I was trying to get into jazz and try to find, because at that point, I was late high school, early college. I was trying, I was shitting all over Wagner excerpts, trying to imagine I was in the back of the Bayreuth Orchestra, and I'm just some guy in Pennsylvania just shitting all over excerpts. But
what made you pick the tuba? We never had that conversation.
No. So my first instrument was clarinet. Not by my choice. I was really bad at sports. Imagine me, the fat Italian guy with the and my parents would encourage me to play sports. Basketball, soccer, wrestling. Never football, thank God, because brain damage. Anyway, and I was pretty good at wrestling. But that was kind of my only thing I was good at. But I was like, fifth grade, I was like, I don't like sports and I'm not having fun. And they're like, you have to do something. You have to make friends. Because back then autism wasn't a word.
Right.
So they're like, I guess you're playing clarinet now. And I hated it. I liked being a band. I liked playing, but I think it was the fact that playing the clarinet was out of my hands, not my choice.
Right.
Middle school, I discovered there was a thing called a bass clarinet, and I always gravitate toward like the low end to deep timbre of your bass clarinet, bass guitar, tuba, etc. So I was like, okay, I'll do this. I did that for a number of years, and then I was in 10th grade, and I was like, I kind of like this music thing. I guess I want to teach it for the rest of my life. And you can't major on bass clarinet. It's like, it's one of those things where it's an auxiliary instrument. So most musicologists say, you play the normal clarinet, or you play alto saxophone, you can't cut it on baritone sax for better or for worse. I was like, well, I don't want to play clarinet because I don't want to do woodshedding on Mendelssohn excerpts. Like I like that low timbre and the deep sound. And I was like, I guess tuba is my way in. So I 10th or 11th grade picked up tuba. My band teacher was a tuba player and let me borrow his personal tuba. And I took lessons and I woodshedded and I was just on it. And it worked out, I guess, for the best. Because I'm currently teaching music and once in a while bring out the tuba and all things. Yeah, so the tuba was not because of the tuba, it's because I like low.
Right.
And, and being such a Steely Dan fan or a Miles Davis fan or a Smiths fan, it's all low end and It all kind of makes sense, right? What are my favorite orchestral works? Prokofiev Symphony 5, where the bassoons, the tuba, the string bass, cello have all the melody. It's one of those things. I don't know what that is, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, I started with alto sax. I started with guitar lessons in third grade because that was the earliest you were allowed to take an instrument. It was either guitar or violin, and I was like, there's no way I'm playing the violin. So I picked guitar. My sister had a guitar. She played a little bit, and I thought that was cool. And, I liked the guitar, so that sort of got me started. And then fifth grade is when you were allowed to pick like a quote unquote real instrument, like, brass, woodwinds, whatever. And I went with alto sax. Same as you. I wasn't crazy about alto, but that's what you start on. Like they wouldn't let you just jump right to tenor, which that's what I wanted to do. Cause, I remember my music teacher, he was like a classical nut and a jazz guy. And all I wanted to do was get a metal mouthpiece so I could like shriek. You know what I mean? Like
you were that kid. I've had that kid. I
was that kid, and he was like, "Why the hell would you want to do that?" He's like, "You're not doing that." I'm not. He's like, "You can go buy your own mouthpiece. The school's not going to pay for it."
No.
I'm like, "All right, whatever." But same thing is like, I kind of, I guess I had an aptitude, and I could sight read really well. So he used to throw me all these weird parts in jazz band, like, or even just in stage band. I wasn't orchestra. I couldn't do orchestra. I wasn't into that kind of music and didn't do anything for me. But I was in marching band, stage band, jazz band. And I remember in stage band and jazz band, if the band director was like, really missing this part, because we didn't have every instrument like most school orchestras or bands don't. So as long as it was in the same key, and sometimes even if it wasn't, he would just throw a piece of sheet music in front of me. Like I remember one piece we were doing, I can't think of what it was, but there was like an oboe part, and he was like, God, I'm missing the oboe part. And he goes, Sutton. I'm like, what? And he goes, here, take this. And he throws a piece of sheet music at me, and it's like this E flat oboe part, which is, the alto's E flat. And he was like, play this instead. He's like, you're not doing, first alto anymore. And I'm like, come on. I'm like, I was first. He's like, I don't care. He goes, you're the only one that can do this. Just shut up and play it. So I started to get an appreciation for counter melodies and harmony and all that kind of stuff because, I started to play different things and kind of understood how it all kind of fit into a piece, and it was great. And that sort of sparked an affinity for me with jazz, I think, from that age. And we didn't do anything terribly complex because it was 8th grade jazz band. But I remember there was a piece called Asleep in Class, and I don't know who the composer was, but that was one of my favorite things to play because it was just this great upbeat, real horn driven, kind of piece of music. And I'll have to go find it now. But yeah.
No, for sure. There's always those like middle school band pieces that stick with you. Actually, yesterday I was at a Junior County Band Festival, and one of the pieces was by Victor Lopez, and it was something I forget. It was something about in the title was drums, and the percussion section, instead of having snares and bass, they had like cans filled, Pepsi cans filled with popcorn kernels, and they had buckets, and they had that was the gimmick, right? It was playing non-traditional. And it was super fun, and the rest of the music was fun, and the fact that there's this gimmick, and I think the one of the most important pieces that I've ever played growing up was it was some middle school county band thing when I was in 6th or 7th or 8th grade. It was a Beatles medley. It was a Sgt. Pepper's medley. And it was your typical medley. The key changes are very slick, and there's always your 5 of 5s, and I'm not a huge Beatles fan. In fact, I'm a Beatles hater. I do like Sgt. Pepper's.
Fair.
Is it because of this experience? Maybe. Is it because I have some good memories with a person about this album? Maybe. But I will always remember playing. And that's back when I was bass clarinet and just playing, A Day in the Life and the Sgt. Pepper's Reprise, and it's those little things that, it happens. It always seems like it's the pop tunes that kind of stick with you at a certain age, and after that, I've played sophisticated band and orchestral music, and has been wonderful. But I always come back to that stupid Beatles arrangement. And,
Hey, there are still pop songs from the 80s that we did in stage band that I hear now, and I hear my sax part. You know what I mean? Like, even if it's not really there, like it was, arranged for band that it really wasn't supposed to be. She Blinded Me with Science by Thomas Dolby. We did. We did Material Girl by Madonna.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
We did Beat It by Michael Jackson in marching band. That was our theme song that year. Yeah, that was fun. So I hear Material Girl, and I can still hear my little sax stabs that I had to do, and it's funny.
There's what's the group's name? It's the Rippingtons, and they were basically the Weather Channel group,
right?
And I taught high school band for a year. It was during COVID, and positions got moved around, and they were like, "Phil, you're teaching high school band," and I was like, "This sucks." But I tried my best with it. And the one kid, saxophone player, very, very good alto saxophone player, was like, "We did this a couple years ago. Can we do it again?" And she told me that I can't remember the tune, but it was the Rippingtons, and I pulled it out, and they did. It was great. But I remember like researching the piece, and I was like, "Oh, it's the Weather Channel group." And I'm like, they kind of slap. And I think that was my first like inkling about yacht rock. I was like listening to this. I'm like, this slaps. This is awesome. And then like 3 years later, I happen to be the yacht rock guy. I'm just like listening to Doobie Brothers demos and just being really into it.
It just sneaks up on you.
It's funny where the seeds get planted for some things.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I grew up listening to the Doobies by proxy because my sister was into them and used to play their albums at home and, later in life in the car with them, we were driving around and stuff. And I remember there's an episode, it's a famous episode of the show What's Happening, and Rerun gets duped into recording, like smuggling a tape recorder into a Doobie Brothers show. And the Doobie Brothers are actually in the episode. And I
saw that. I think that was a meme. That's a real thing.
It's a real episode, and they're actually in it. And he gets caught by their security guard, and they bring him backstage, and they're like, "Not cool, Rerun, not cool, man." It's just, it's such a '70s moment. It's beautiful.
They had their moment because you had that. You had the famous Michael McDonald of Ride Like the Wind, SCTV skit.
Yes,
they rocked it. The Doobie Brothers. And when I was a kid, I thought they sucked because I'm like, this is weird. And then you grow up, and it's like they kind of rock. They're phenomenal.
They are.
And now I'm seeing them this summer, and I'm super excited. And they're doing a new album, and I'm here for it. This yacht rock revival, even though Hall & Oates just broke up, which pisses me off.
I know.
I was supposed to see them. I am from the Philly area, and this was pre-pandemic, right before the pandemic. There was the Wawa Hoagie Fest.
Yep.
And my dad bought tickets for me, him, and my sister. I was going to drive down from my where I was teaching at the time, and it was the whole thing. And we were super excited to go see Hall & Oates, and then the pandemic hit, and the first thing that got canceled was Hall & Oates. And then it was that time. It was April, May 2020. It's like, it's going to come back. Everything's going to come back. It's going to be normal. Flash forward to the depression that hit after the year was not normal. And we were always holding out hope. And then they just broke up, or one sued the other over money. And
yeah, of course. That's always comes down to money.
Can I just see a concert?
I know.
Can I just see... Can I feel joy? And the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because money's involved.
You should just tell them to just suck it up and, put on their big boy pants and get on stage together. And, they don't have to be friends. They can just play music for a few hours and, make the fans happy, right?
I saw Van Halen a couple times. And they, David Lee Roth and Eddie, they made it work.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, David Lee Roth did this weird intro that was 10 minutes of him playing acoustic guitar. And it was for, Ice Cream Man, which has the acoustic guitar. But instead of making it about girls or whatever, he just, on the screen behind him, there's this home footage of his dog, which is fine. I love animals. But he was doing a blues thing for 10 minutes about his dog before they went to Ice Cream Man. It's like, is this necessary? Can we just play the song? But if Van Halen can make it work, any band can make it work.
Absolutely.
Is my opinion.
So let's get back to Miles, because what else about this? This is like a compilation album, right? It's not like, it wasn't recorded sequentially on purpose. Like, in other words, it was just culled together from a few different sessions or whatever.
Kind of. So this album was recorded in 49, 50. It didn't come out until I think 57. And like I said, Miles Davis at the time was hanging out at Gil Evans' place, kind of assembled these treble and bass versions of different instruments: alto sax, bari sax, trumpet, trombone, French horn, tuba. But it was way before his quartet or quintet, the famous. And that's the weird thing about this album. And there's a couple other Miles Davis releases around this point where they weren't released right away. I mean, the fact that this took 10 years to come out is weird in terms of Miles Davis's output and the output of any musician at that time, because this was, the 50s. This was, the LP became the standard people were recording and coming out with things. There was a live gig that the complete Birth of the Cool has, where it plays all the songs from Birth of the Cool. There's a theme, there's a couple extras. But what this represents for me is really, like I said, like the tuba in the jazz band and what it represents and how it can be utilized not as a gimmick, but as an instrument. And Miles Davis and Gil Evans would utilize the tuba in Sketches of Spain, which came out... I think this came out, like, after Sketches of Spain. That's the weird thing about Birth of the Cool is, like, the fact that it was a 10-year waiting period, right? So Sketches of Spain came out in the mid-50s. So did Seven Steps of Heaven, or Seven Steps to Heaven. But this was just like, there were singles, right? You can find the old shellac singles. This was featured in that really awful Sopranos prequel movie. Well, what was that? The May States Newark, where Ray Liotta, he like demands jazz records in jail. And it's like, it's Birth of the Cool, and it's like some nonsense, and he's like, I don't want this. I just want Birth of the Cool. And I was like, oh, okay. So the only good thing about that movie was name dropping Miles Davis. But like I said, like what this represents for me is a broadening of my horizons, a more melodic tuba playing, which I appreciated. Is it Miles Davis's best record? No. Some would say Kind of Blue. Some would say Bitches Brew. Some would say Seven Steps of Heaven. The orchestration is very interesting. It's a weird album, but it's part of that whole Miles mythology. So it is on my list because it has to be. It's interesting. It has to be. It's weird. It does all these different things, and he was in his mid-20s, and it shows the genius of him at this early age.
Have you read his autobiography?
I have not. It's on my Amazon list.
Yeah,
that's part of my. I saw there was that Miles Davis movie with Ewan McGregor, right?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I watched like half of that, and I'm like, that's cool. Where's,
his autobio is a great read. It's in his voice. He has like somebody helping him write it. Not necessarily a ghostwriter because he's credited. Quincy Troop, I think, is the writer's name, but it's really a good read. Goes through his whole career, and it's just funny. Like there are moments in the book that you just laugh out loud because of like how he describes something that happened, and calling somebody a motherfucker, and like just great, just totally. It's Miles's voice, like what I mean. Miles. So yeah, totally.
There's a story he was at, and I think this was the 80s. He was like at some White House event, and some politician, someone who thinks they're better than everyone else, was like, why are you here? And he's like, I've reinvented music like 5 or 6 times. Why are you here? He's one of those, one of those special musicians. He's on that level of, as much as I'm not a fan of, like a John Lennon or Bruce Springsteen, because what he did was so innovative. He took this genre of jazz and was, a sideman in Charlie Parker's band, and did cool, Birth of the Cool was cool jazz, bebop, post-bop, did the psychedelic kind of Bitches Brew.
Kind of started fusion, really, yeah.
Really? Yeah, I mean, that Bitches Brew band had,
it's a Chick Corea.
Chick Corea in it, and John McLaughlin. And that's a great album. And then you would have, your Weather Report, your Jacko Pastorius album, and I think he was in Weather Report for a while. So, like I said, it's not my favorite albums is kind of tricky. It's not my favorite Miles Davis album, but where I was in my life as just being a Wagner head, a Mahler head, and trying to expand. Birth of the Cool, great tuba playing, cool orchestration, the tunes, they're 2.5 minute, 3 minute tunes. They're pop tunes, essentially.
Right.
It was just, and I love, they had 1 or 2 live sets. Like, it's so neat that, like, this was captured. And this was the 50s. It's weird that it was captured. And we should, appreciate that and respect that. The fact
For sure.
that, we, as Steely Dan nerds, we drool over, this one, a concert from 1996.
Any nugget.
Any nugget. But it's like, this is a big deal.
Yeah, totally.
The fact that, the parts were found and reconstructed to a score, and you can see I have all the, movements. I would call them movements, tunes, bookmarked and marked up. It's weird, but it's cool. Yes. And I wish all our favorite albums had that treatment.
Right. All right. Anything else to say on Birth of the Cool?
Listen to it.
Yeah. I have.
Listen to it.
I have. I bought the CDs years and years and years ago. I probably haven't listened to that album in too long, so I'm going to go back and revisit. All right. So why don't we move on to one of mine then?
Yes.
So the one that we didn't get to last time was Let Me Come Over, the 1992 masterpiece by Buffalo Tom.
Wonderful album.
Yeah. So, I guess context for me, it's funny. I wrote a Twitter thread on like sort of my own history with Buffalo Tom. Couple years ago, there was this music thing. I was doing like all these music challenges on Twitter, and they're kind of fun. So there was a thing called 30 Days, 30 DJs, and everybody signed up for like a day, right? And on your day, you would play DJ for the day and introduce everybody else to like one specific artist, right? Whoever it was, didn't matter who it was. And the idea was you would tell stories about like how you discovered the band and like why you liked them and some of your favorite songs, and you could post song links and videos and articles and anything goes kind of. It was just like educate us about a band that you love, right? Like share your love for an artist. So the first one of those that I did was Buffalo Tom, and I wrote this like 25 or 26 tweet long thread about like sort of how I came to love the band and sort of like my history of listening to them through the years. So I just recently sort of just copied and pasted that and made it into a blog post. So I'll link it in the show notes, but basically on my Aural Mess website, there's a blog section, and every so often I'll write something and throw it up there. So it's up now. So how I got into the band was as I've said on the podcast a bunch of times, and I think this too, Phil, I grew up in South Jersey. I lived in Atlantic City, and summer in between college one year, I was working on the boardwalk in this mall and doing retail, and it was, corporate retail. So they had like this music system, right? It was like basically a tape deck. And they had these tapes that they would send every month. We get a new tape, and a lot of it was geared toward like top 40 and dance music and upbeat stuff, like, cause you're shopping and, they want you to feel good. But when the whole alternative and grunge thing really sort of started to explode a little more, they kind of got with the times, and they started sending out like more alternative rock type tapes. So
Cool.
and I gravitated toward that, and I would play it. I was a store manager, so nobody could tell me what to play, right? So I was playing those tapes, and people are like, put the dance tape back in. And I'm like, no, only on Saturdays when it's busy. Right now, it's 3:00 on a Tuesday. I need to hear friggin', Soundgarden. Yeah. So anyway, I wasn't real familiar with Buffalo Tom before that. I think I maybe heard a couple of their songs, through college radio years, that sort of thing. But I remember their song Torch Singer off of Big Red Letter Day was on one of these tapes. And I just fell in love with that song, and then realized, I didn't know too much about the band. So I think I went and bought the album, probably on my break from work. I probably walked out to Sam Goody and plunked down the $12 or whatever, $10 for the CD. And just was like, wow, love this band. Right. So, from there, I kind of worked my way backwards. Because that was their fourth album. Let Me Come Over is their third album. So I got into Let Me Come Over, and I was like, wow, how did I miss this when it came out? It was just like a few years after it had been released. So from there, I just started listening to them. They had an album out in 95, another one in 98. And then in 90, I think it was 98, I was working at a school district. This is when I had switched jobs and, left retail and gotten into technology. So I was working for a school district, and there was a woman who worked in the administration for the school district, and I would stop in and talk to her from time to time, just make my rounds or whatever, because, I was like a technician, so I had to, help people with different issues, things like that. So I don't know how the topic came up. It must have been like, an off day or a summer day when we were allowed to wear T-shirts and stuff to school. So I was wearing some band T-shirt. She was like, "Oh, you like that band?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Have you heard of a band called Buffalo Tom?" And I'm like, "Barbara, you're a little too old for Buffalo Tom. How do you know them?" And she goes, "Well, my son-in-law is the lead singer and the guitar player." I'm like,
Oh.
"Get out of here." Yeah. I'm like, "No way, get out of here." Yeah.
Okay.
So she was like, "Yeah, and they're coming to Philly in a few months." And I'm like, "I know." I'm like, "I have tickets." And she's like, "Oh, you do? Would you like to meet the band? I'll call Bill, my son-in-law, and Bill Janovitz, who's the lead singer." And she's like, "I'll get you backstage. You can meet the band." And I'm like, yeah." Thanks. That would be great. So she did, I did, and took my girlfriend at the time, and it was at Theater of Living Arts in Philly, which I don't even know if it's okay. Yeah, it's still there. And
Well, I
great
don't know
show.
if it's still there. I just know it's
Okay, yeah,
saw
it's a
hardcore show or two back in the day.
oh yeah, and
I mean, that was 10 years ago, so who knows?
and this was longer than that. So I don't know if they're still around, but if they are, it's a great little venue. And we were lucky enough that the band let us watch from the side of the stage. They were like, "Do you guys want to hang out backstage, like see the show from the side of the stage?" Like, it's sure. So we just literally stood on the side of the stage and watched the whole thing. It was great. And then, like, halfway through, I think we walked out to the front for a little bit to get the sound and get the experience. But so anyway, from then I've been hooked. And none of the people in the band and Buffalo Tom do music full time anymore. They all have like day jobs. They put out an album like every 5, 6, 7, 8 years now. They have a new one coming out in May, which I'm really excited about because it's been a while. I think the last one was 2016, I want to say. Yeah, maybe it was 2016. Anyway, so Let Me Come Over, third album, sort of represents a little bit of a different sound for the band because the first two albums were real dirty, lo-fi, guitar-driven, and you use this term, and I love that you use this term, college rock music, right? And it was produced by Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr., when Buffalo Tom first started to come out and get popular, people referred to them as Dinosaur Jr. So, yeah. So what do you think? I know you listened to it.
I listened to it once or twice, maybe 3 times. I liked it. The whole college, as I say, college rock sound, REM, Dinosaur Jr., Pixies, has been a sound I've always liked, but never. When I first, heard the Pixies, I was deep in my punk rock phase. I was busy with the Germs, Super Jerks, adolescence. I would listen to the Pixies. I saw Fight Club when I was 14. But I was driving a lot this weekend and listened to this album and thought it was phenomenal.
It's a great driving album. It's great for the car.
Great. I was like, what I thought immediately was there's this alternative world where I didn't get into punk rock or hardcore and got into like my main listening would be college rock, Dinosaur Jr., Pixies, etc. And Buffalo Tom would fit well into that vibe. I thought it was great. My favorite song I think is the big hit from this album. What, second tune?
Taillights Fade.
Yeah, and that's the one I gravitate to. And I know it's basic or whatever, but it's just jangly guitar. I know they were, well, Jay Mascis produced it, but they're friends with Dinosaur Jr. And the other, what was it, Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Bands? Yeah, that kind of Northeast. And if I didn't get into the Smiths when I did, I probably would have gotten into them, sort of thing. Like, it's great music. I look forward to exploring their sound, and it's great. It's like a Sonic Youth to me, like where I like this band. I need to check it out more. But I have other.
Oh yeah, I mean, just there's so
listens.
many things to catch up on. I know.
Yeah. It's just great album. Super talented. Just songs about breakups and sadness, and I find myself listening to the saddest music in the sunniest weather. Like the Smiths to me are a sunshine band. Like when the sun starts to poke out and it's summertime, I just listen to the Smiths. I don't know why. And then when the when it's overcast, I listen to Steely Dan. So I guess I'm just a moody human being. But no, a great album. Could see how it's someone's favorite. And I need to listen to more of their stuff because it's just well done.
And their sound continues to evolve past that album, right? When you get into Big Red Letter Day, they get a little more, higher production value even than Let Me Come Over. Then the next album, Sleepy Eyed, sort of takes everything in a slightly different direction. And then when you keep going through their catalog, their sound just matures. They add some piano and organ. Not that it wasn't there at all before, but like it gets a little bit more prominent in the sound, and the songcraft just really sort of gets better, and it's funny because, I think the guys in the band are probably maybe 8 years older than me ish. I don't know how old they are. I think they're like in their late 50s. So it's funny because some of their albums hit me like, their album Skins is like when they were in their 40s, and like I was just getting to that point in my life. So like some of the material kind of hits me, you know what I mean? And now the last album that they put out, the single is called All Be Gone, and I'm gonna butcher the line, but it's something like my time ahead is shorter than my time behind. And I was like, oof. Like that lyric just fucked with me for like a week after I heard the song for the first time, but I couldn't stop playing it because it just, it made sense. So I was like, man, yeah, okay. So anyway, it's kind of funny because I kind of grew up with the band that I feel like they're still making music that speaks to me. So,
well, I find that interesting. I recently picked up the Third Theory and a Third book on the Ramones debut of a top 10 album if we were to expand this. And I was listening to the album again, and because I was 12 when I first listened to that, I didn't realize that 53rd and 3rd was their prostitution. And I was listening to it, and it's like, oh, try and turn a trick. And then Dee Dee's line about cutting someone. I'm like, oh, who let me listen to this when I was 12? It's one of those things. It becomes more relatable as you grow older. Most Steely Dan records, a lot of punk albums. This album, I'm sure if I would go back and listen to what was it, Minutemen, Double Nickels on a Dime.
Yeah,
a great album I loved, but I'm sure if I listened to it right now, I would be like, oh, this sucks, because I get it.
Well, that was like me listening to Dead Kennedys when I was like 14, like I loved the music and it was just like amazing, but I didn't get half of the references and half of the political shit. And, looking back now, it's like, wow. They predicted, they like Simpson the hell out of like the modern world.
Jello is one of the smartest people, I think.
Oh, yes.
Like, in the punk scene, and people never give it credit, but the punk scene is home to some of the smartest people, I think.
Yeah.
You have a Henry, you have a Jello, you have a Keith from the Circle Jerks, you have Milo. You
have John Lydon, who's brilliant. People think he was just, this sneering asshole in the Sex Pistols, but he's a freaking genius. He's really, really smart.
The Buzzcocks guys, all super smart.
Yeah.
And it's it doesn't get that love because, punk's supposed to be fast and aggressive, and it's like, yes. But what are the lyrics saying? The bad brains, for all the fault.
Yeah.
The homophobia that a lot of later Bad Brains stuff had. That first Bad Brains album, they were JR, or what's the name? Not JR. That was the guy from Dallas. The singer, the PMA, positive mental attitude.
Right.
You know, it just. And I use that in my current teaching. I'm like, you kids need the PMA, the positive mental attitude. Does it work all the time? No, because they're 12. So I was a moody 12-year-old, but I try to promote that. No, the punk scene, a lot of really intelligent people, because I think they saw things for how things are or were. That was what Reaganomics. That was just nonsense, and they said fuck that, and I don't know. It's wonderful. It still holds up, and it shouldn't. I'm mad about listening to the Dead Kennedys and like.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm mad. You listen to the Kennedys, and it's like, oh, I get this. It's like I shouldn't. We should be past this. That's life. It's great music. I also feel very sad when I listen to Kill the Poor with the obviously the irony
God.
of
Yes.
It's like, and then you see memes about anti-homeless infrastructure. It's like, can we just be nice?
I love the fact that Jello ran for mayor. It was like 1981 or something.
Yes,
Yeah,
he just went for it.
And his whole platform was that politicians had to wear clown suits to work, and he's just, my God, just took the piss out of everybody.
That's the best part of punk rock, is not the music, as great as it is. I saw, I've seen some great punk bands, but just shitting on nonsense doesn't, the great punk bands don't say anything that we don't think, right?
Right, exactly.
But it's up front, it's in your face, it's that spirit, it's that we could probably fix this, but let's just call out nonsense. And it's a hard position to be in, if you have a government job or you have a social job, but Jello's there saying it, Keith's there saying it, Henry.
The Clash, by the way, the Clash doesn't get enough love. I mean, they weren't really part of the hardcore scene, obviously, but like some of their stuff too was just so on point, and still is when you listen back to it now.
Because the Clash is special, I think, because their relation to like the ska scene, and the anti-racism. That's why the Two-Tone Records was White and Black. It was the coming together. And there's a 33 1/3 book about Sandinista, which was Clash's triple album. Not an album, for the record, that I've been a huge fan of. Not because I don't like the music, because it's a triple album. It's the same thing. As much as I love like Martin Scorsese, it's the same thing that's put me off of What Killers of the Flower Moon. That's 3.5 hours.
That's commitment.
Look, I teach. I come home. I just want to make a shit meal and go to bed. And 3.5 hours for a movie.
I have a hard time committing to movies that are longer than like 2:15. That's my limit.
I'm trying to get better with that. I have some very close friends who are film buffs. I've always wanted to be like the film guy, but I fell into the music guy. 3.5 hours. But I've tried to watch, Once Upon a Time in America, the Sergio Leone film.
Yeah.
I've tried to watch that a billion times. And I get like 40 minutes into it. And I'm just like,
please tell me
Return of the Jedi, I guess. A Sopranos episode, like.
Please tell me that, since you're such a big Sopranos fan, please tell me you've seen The Pope of Greenwich Village.
No.
Oh, Phil, you have to go. And it's only an hour and a half long. It's not even a long movie, so
Is James in that?
No, it's just it's a mafia movie, but it's mafia adjacent, if you want to call it that. It's about these two mooks in New York who decide that they need to score, and they try to rob this low grade mob boss because they find out that he has all this cash sitting in a safe, and they team up with this old guy who's a safe cracker, and it's just like this crime caper mob hit thing gone wrong. But it's Mickey Rourke, young Mickey Rourke, and young Eric Roberts, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like you need to see it.
What's that called again?
The Pope of Greenwich Village.
Okay, I'll watch it after this. That's awesome. Actually,
Yes.
I'm a little. Speaking of being a Sopranos fan, I'm a little pissed off because the diner at the end of the finale, they're renovating, and they sold the Sopranos booth, the one where Tony looks on.
Oh,
And so many people have said that to me. It's like, Phil, you gotta get the booth. And I'm like, it's at auction for $60,000. I'm a teacher. Won't happen. But I'm seeing the Doobie Brothers this summer, and a friend of mine lives in North Jersey, and she's gonna show me all the Sopranos spots and all the things,
Nice.
drive-by, sand dolls.
I just drove past that in Dallas today. That was I had to go that way for the errand that I told you about. We were right on Route 17. It's it's
I have
every
no
time I
interest
drive by there.
in going to a strip club, but
No,
hey, it's the Bing. And
but just pulling up and taking a picture. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
But no, I can't go to Holston's, and I guess I can still get onion rings, but the booth's not there. Like, I'm about to cancel this Doobie Brothers trip. I'm not going to, but it just ticks me off. Why would you sell that? Like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's that show, man.
I never got into it, and I probably should revisit it. I've seen some. I've watched a little bit here and there, but I couldn't get into it where I had to watch the whole thing. But by the way, I was the same way with Breaking Bad, and then I met somebody, a friend of mine was like, you need to watch Breaking Bad. Just suffer through the first couple episodes. I know it's like, you think you know what it's about, but you really don't. And now I've watched that series 3 times all the way through, and I've watched Better Call Saul probably twice all the way through.
I've watched Breaking Bad about twice.
Yeah.
Better Call Saul, I actually never finished the last season, where I was in my life and moving around. I
Sure.
never got but I love it. It's wonderful.
So I might have to
I've done
revisit.
some Breaking Bad Steely Dan memes with
Yes.
Jive Miguel. Yeah, I mean it's look, people don't have to like certain series, but The Sopranos makes me think. I was watching it earlier, and I was just like, I'm thinking about me and myself and other people, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's wonderful.
I hear you. So what's your next album?
So my last album, and I think timeline wise, so first would have been Dookie in pre high school. Queen is Dead. Birth of the Cool was a college album. Like I said, I was trying to late high school, early college, trying to branch out, listening to some more jazz. Asia within the past year, and most recently an album I've always liked but have not kind of dug into. Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life.
Yes, excellent choice.
It's one of those very few albums that have a 33 and third on it and a classic albums. Not saying that denotes quality, but if this album has it in Asia, it says something.
Right.
The peak of Stevie Wonder's, I mean, we know Stevie Wonder for the hits. Stevie Wonder is Stevie Wonder. He is a James Brown. He's a Michael Jackson. He is a whoever. It is a double album plus an EP. So it's about, what does this come out to be? 2 hours? Not 2 hours. Hour and a half of music.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So famously, Stevie Wonder had this perfect run, starting with, so he was signed to Motown, right? And he did like when he was a kid, he was signed to Motown. So he did like a Ray Charles tribute album because they were both blind and kind of had the same range and all the things. But he had, hits, and it was the Motown machine where like the album kind of didn't matter, but it was the hits. And Stevie was so sure of his talent, his songwriting abilities that he saved a lot of his kind of top tunes until his contract ran out with Motown. And Berry Gordy begged to hire him back because, I mean, this was in the 70s. Like, the Supremes were kind of dead.
Right.
All these Motown groups that, Michael Jackson was doing the Michael Jackson thing. He was out of Motown. I mean, he still did some Jackson records. But Stevie Wonder had these tunes and was kind of saving them. And then by 1972, when he turned 21, his contract with Motown expired, and Berry Gordy was trying to hire him back, and Stevie was playing coy, and eventually they hired him back. And then he did a run of 5 or 6 albums. 72 was Music of My Mind, and also Talking Book having Superstition on it.
Right.
Then it was Intervisions in 73. And then it was Fulfilling Mrs. First Finale in 74. And then 76, so there was a 2-year gap, came out with Songs in the Key of Life, a title that Stevie Wonder thought beforehand and tried to write songs that would kind of describe the human experience. And there's songs about life on this album, songs about death, songs about Isn't She Lovely is not about a woman, but it's about
it's his daughter. Yeah.
And if you listen to the album cut, it's like 6 minutes, and you hear like he's like giving her a bath and she's laughing, and there's
Yep.
it's beautiful. And as someone who's not a parent, I think it's beautiful. I can only imagine someone who is a parent.
I have no appreciation for it now. Never liked it when I was younger because I was like, what the hell's this?
Yeah.
You know, and I knew it was about his daughter and couldn't relate, but you know, once you have that kid, it's the whole world changes.
So not only is that, and as someone who is single and living on their own, like these songs just speak to the human experience, and the fact it's 2 LPs, and like I said, a 7-inch EP. Like, it is packed full of songs, and there's a like 30-page booklet that comes with it that is like the lyrics, and it's laid out like the way he sings lyrics. So if there's like some space, there will be like in the lyrics there's space in the booklet, and it's the final album of his, you know, golden run. It's perfection. It is his artistic statement, and it has every, like, if you're a human, this album will speak to you on some level.
Yeah.
And is it his best? Probably. It's not like a Birth of the Cool where that's not his best, but it erupted. Like, this is his best, probably, and also just special, and
it's a landmark album. It's you know, there's no denying that it's just a timeless classic, and it lands on everybody's, you know, top 100 list for a reason.
So this was 76. Could you imagine being a record consumer in 1976, pick up this in the same year you pick up the Royal Scam?
Yep, exactly.
I'm pretty sure I've listened to this and the Royal Scam back to back. It's like, god damn, the 70s were kind of lit.
Yeah, that was those few years from like 74 to 77, man. Like, you just can't. That'll never happen again.
No, and I've listened to Stevie past 76, and it's still great. I mean, he's a consummate artist, but it's not the same. And you'll listen to his early stuff, his pop stuff, and it's great, but it's not like A Signed Sealed Delivered, you know, when he was kind of being dictated by Motown, and then you hear, I don't know, I Wish. Oh,
I love Sir Duke, by the way. It's maybe not his deepest song lyrically, but
I love songs where artists are paying tribute to other artists.
Yeah.
Sir Duke.
I love that. I remember it being on the radio when I was a kid. You know, it wasn't current because I was only 4, but like when I was probably 10, 11 years old, and, you know, used to sit and tape stuff with my boom box. off the radio. I remember that song always coming on and me having it on a couple different cassettes and stuff. And as an older adult and, picking up the bass guitar, I don't know how many years ago, that song always makes it onto my playlist of, songs I'd love to be able to play on the bass, but just can never probably get there.
And the amazing thing about Stevie Wonder is, and you can look in the booklet, at least on his golden run, right, those 4 years or so, he was the musician.
Yeah. He plays like every instrument.
Aside from horns.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the tracks on this album, Villainous's first finale, Talking Book, etc., he's it will say musicians, and it will just say Stevie Wonder. And that's not that's true. He's so talented. And you listen to us, Hurt Duke, or you listen to and I Wish, the drums are a little sloppy. A little. And that's Stevie. Could he have hired a Steve Gadd? Yes. Could he have hired Bernard Purdie?
Right.
But it's
Are the
some of the
drums
sloppiness
perfect?
is the humanity. As much as
Right.
we love Steely Dan or yacht rock bands for their perfection, it's like a double album plus a 45.
Right.
And the drums are a little sloppy. But
that's okay because they fit the vibe, they fit the song, right? And that's the thing.
I'm not sure if I will ever see Stevie Wonder in my lifetime. He's obviously still alive and healthy, and God bless that. I mean, if he does one more tour,
yeah,
I'm there.
I would go see him. Yeah.
It's the same thing about Steely Dan. I didn't want to spend $300 to see them open for the Eagles because not an Eagles fan. Not an Eagles fan, not a Beatles fan. The most toxic Steely Dan fan on the internet. But oh my God, I was actually supposed to see Michael Jackson. Remember when, right before he died, he announced the tour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And my parents split up. I lived with my dad and mom. I see her on the weekends or whatever, and money with her was tight at the time, and she made it. We're all good now, and things are good. But she was like, she looked at me. I was 12 or 13, and I was such a dick. I was such an asshole when I was a teenager. But she was like, we're seeing Michael Jackson. And she saved up and bought the Michael Jackson tickets.
That's cool.
Or had it. And then I remember, I was at her house for the weekend, and my sister wakes me up, and she's like, Michael Jackson's dead. What are you talking about? And that's so part of my thing is to see these. I don't like concerts. I don't like crowds. I don't like people.
Yeah. Me too.
And I'll tell people, you're a musician. I'm like, I play tuba. I'm in the back, and it's dark, and I play whole notes.
I have no problem playing and being on stage in front of people. I did it, a lot, but I'm not a big live music fan. I don't like the people in the crowds and I've gone to a bunch of shows and I'll make myself go for something that I really want to go see. But 9 times out of 10, I've actually bailed on stuff that I bought tickets for. I feel bad, but
I'm the same way. But I'm trying to see those legendary acts. I would love to see Stevie Wonder. Christopher Cross is actually coming to. I live 5 minutes away from Hershey, PA.
Okay.
And he's doing a tour with someone, and I don't think he's the headliner. But I'm just waiting for a check to cash, and I'll go see Christopher Cross. See Riley Quinn live.
Yeah, sure.
But it kind of started with that Michael Jackson. I've seen Kiss. I saw Iron Maiden a couple times, Van Halen. If it's not about the art, I just want to see I want to say I saw them.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Rolling Stones fan. If they do one more tour, I might just fork over the money, to see the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, I saw the Stones. I don't know if I'd go see them again.
It's one of those. I saw Kiss, and I was a huge Kiss fan in high school because I thought I was edgy, and dressed up like Paul Stanley. And they do the thing. Gene Simmons ascends to the rafters, and I thought they were going to do God of Thunder because he started with the bass solo. And they ended up doing Shout Out Loud or something. And me and my buddy who were 12 and just Like, what the fuck? He lives in Nevada now, so he only visits every once in a while. We still talk about that. It's like, remember that time that Kiss like honey dicked us with God of Thunder? But no, that's you know, I want to see Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Miles Davis died before I was born.
Right.
I saw Van Halen with David Lee Roth. It wasn't great. I want to see Steely Dan. You know,
Yep.
Because you know.
Well, let me tie Stevie Wonder back to one of the albums or one of the artists that I talked about last week. So he actually plays the harmonica part on Nightingales by Prefab Sprout, which is not on the album that we talked about, but it's on their next album.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their album from Langley Park to Memphis. There's a song called Nightingales, and I don't know how. I need to do some internet research. I don't know how this happened, like how this came to be, but apparently
they were.
I think it was the Thomas Dolby connection. I think Dolby knows a lot of people, and I think he worked with Stevie because Stevie's into like synths and all the electronic stuff. And I think maybe there's a connection there. I don't know, but so interesting kind of loop back to the prefabs.
But you're going to talk about an album that surprised me with how much I liked it.
Yeah, so let's take that and run with it. And I want to have a very specific question to ask you about that. So my final album, and the last one for this episode, is Siamese Dream by the Smashing Pumpkins from 1993. Smashing Pumpkins. I didn't know who they were. I want to give 100% credit, and I think I've already said this on a previous episode, but it bears repeating. My friend Amy, if you're listening, was instrumental in me discovering so much music because her tastes were just like light years ahead of mine. I mean, I like to think
we all have that friend that friend who turned me off to the Smiths and Joy Division and
exactly that was Amy. Friend. That was Amy to me, and I like to think that I turned her on to stuff too, and I think I did. But for the most part, it was 80% her making me tapes and playing shit for me and being like, you got to listen to this, and I was like, ooh, like Velvet Underground, Tom Waits. I didn't have an exposure to those bands until she played them or put them on a mixtape for me. So anyway, when Smashing Pumpkins' first album came out, the album Gish,
was that 90?
91. So
when was Nevermind? Was that also 91?
91 also, yeah. That sort of kicked off the whole grunge explosion, right?
I feel like we need context. And I know they're not grunge, but I feel like...
Well, they're grunge adjacent, and I think they get lumped in.
Yeah. I thought they were a grunge band, and then you yelled at me last podcast. and I agree with you. I took notes. But I feel like it's important. As someone who's born in 95, who only knows the grunge era from VH1, TV. Being a music nerd.
Yeah, I flew my flannel shirt for a few years. Let's just say that. But
let's see what you're wearing. That is is adult grunge. That is white. No,
it's grunge light.
91 was Gish. Yes,
91 was Gish,
was
and
93.
Siamese Dream was 93. So 91, I pick up Amy in my car. I don't know where we're going, out somewhere or whatever. And she pops whatever cassette I had out of my cassette deck in my car, and she puts tape in. I'm like, what are you putting in? And she goes, shh, just listen. She's like, this is going to blow your mind. Just shut up and listen. And the opening lines to I Am One, the first track on Gish, comes on, and I'm like, huh. And like immediately it just like goes into this like just amazing riff and like this heavy guitars. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, who the hell is this? She's like, some new band, Smashing Pumpkins. And I'm like, wow, like this is awesome. So, we listened to however much of the album, was in the car ride. And then I think I either borrowed her tape or had her, dub me a copy or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, stole it. And, yeah, I probably did. I might have just said like, you can't have this back until I'm done with
Here's
it.
$5 and forget about it. I've done that.
Yeah. So anyway, really fell in love with the band, and I remember being really excited for Siamese Dream to come out because I was just waiting for the more music from this band. So Siamese Dream comes out. It's '93. I'm 21 years old. I'm your typical angsty, 21-year-old, and
been there, done that.
Yeah, haven't we all? And Smashing Pumpkins, like I said, it wasn't grunge.
No,
it was more like a blend of like if you read interviews and listen to Billy Corgan, he likes the Smiths and the Cure and Joy Division, but he also likes Black Sabbath and Zeppelin. Like he was like reared on all this like sad emo kind of music, but also hard rock, right? So
yes.
He kind of perfectly marries those two things together, I think, in the Pumpkins sound. And they do what Led Zeppelin used to describe as like, heavy and light, right? So Zeppelin would have this beautiful acoustic intro to a song, and then it would just take a left turn and, be like the hardest thing you've ever heard.
I noted that. I heard that and I loved it.
And the Pumpkins had that same dynamic, right? And they took it further in Siamese Dream. So, Siamese Dream, the band, I don't want to say they were on the verge of breaking up, but I think they were not happy as a band. I think that they started to get some notoriety. Billy wasn't happy with the musicianship of Darcy Retzky, who was the bass player, and James Iha, who was the second guitar player. And I think he just started playing a lot of things himself. So I think they would come in and lay down tracks, and he would just they'd go home and he'd stay, in the studio and re-record his parts himself because he wanted to play them a certain way or, whatever. So he pissed off the band members, I think, except for Jimmy Chamberlain, who, is the perfect drummer, for that, kind of music or whatever.
Wow.
But, so
the rhythm
there was
section on this album is insane.
Yes. So
that's in my notes, and we'll get to that.
Whether it's Billy playing bass, whether it's actually Darcy, I don't know. But Jimmy Chamberlain his drumming is like unfucking real. He's one of my favorite drummers. His meter is unmatched. I mean, the dude, you could set your watch by the dude. The hi-hat part on Cherub Rock when it kicks in after the first few bars or whatever, or the first intro.
Today, I noted great drumming, arrow, cymbals with a big box. Like just the nuance. I know that's a big hit, and I didn't necessarily gravitate toward that song. I was just listening to it down. And I noted a couple songs.
But his touch is like he reminds me of Bonham, where Bonham was the heaviest, hardest hitting drummer, but he had such a light touch and he could swing when he wanted to. And I think Chamberlain's got that same, he was brought up. I think his father was like a jazz musician or whatever. So I think he played in his dad's like jazz band when he was a teenager. So he's got that side of his playing where. Yeah, he's totally got feel. So anyway, perfect marriage for me of heavy-ass guitars, brilliant recording and production by Billy and Butch Vig, by the way, who's a genius. And just the lyrics, those lyrics were at a time in my life when I was going through some shit. And, it's they still resonate. Like, they still hit me a certain way today. So
like I said before this, have not been a Smashing Pumpkins fan, which is weird. I've always been into punk and hardcore, but for some reason grunge, I know it's not grunge, but grunge adjacent has never done it for me, and I'm not sure why. Like, I'd rather listen to the Circle Jerks than Nirvana, which is fine. It's music. We all like what you like. But something about that sound never appealed to me. I said on the last podcast we did that Billy Corgan is only relevant to my life because he owns the National Wrestling Alliance.
Right.
But as with all the albums that you've shared, which I have loved and need to revisit when I have more time, I listened to this and just said, I'll play it, I'll look at the lyrics and write notes, and it's still not my style. It's not punky enough for me to gravitate toward, but I can appreciate the production. I wrote notes for every song.
There's some standout tracks for you.
There's some, the one I really liked, Geek USA.
Yes.
That's
I think that's my favorite song on the album. It has to be.
But I made notes. A lot of these tracks are like equivalent to like groove metal for me, like very Pantera adjacent.
I could see that.
Guitar. Who's that lead guitarist? Because he is insane.
It's Corgan.
That's
most of the leads are Corgan. I don't know how much lead Eha plays. Yeah, he's a motherfucker on guitar.
Yeah, and the rhythm section, and like you said, this might be mostly Corgan on bass. This is very much their Gaucho album, where like one person takes control. But I like, and this is a long album. This is over an hour.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that. I was thinking Smash, like most albums, they're 30 to 45 minutes, an average length of a orchestral symphony. But I saw an hour, and I'm like, okay, let's just do it. And it did take me, I was trying to listen to it throughout my work day, so I had to stop. So it was 2 listens. But great playing, great songwriting, lyrics hit. Like I said, not my ideal sound.
Right.
But what I really appreciate about this album, it did not feel like an hour. Like there are some songs that are shorter, your 3-minute, 4-minute mark. And then, Soma's 6.5 minutes.
Oh, I love that song too.
I love that song. And then Silverfuck is almost 9 minutes. And it doesn't feel like 9 minutes.
No, it builds.
It's and now I'm almost not confused, but I'm almost like second guessing my opinions about certain groups. Like, could Phil be a grunge guy? Probably not.
Well,
the playing is out of this world, the songwriting, and all the songs about breakups and sadness, and
right.
I'm 28, almost 29, and hi. So it's about to hit summer, so the Smiths are going to come on full blast. But what a great, like I said, not my style, but ton of respect. Ton of respect. Would I see them live? I was with a friend probably, but like,
not gonna lie, they're not great live.
So, like, come on.
Yeah, Geek USA and Soma they're back to back, right, on the album. It's Soma, then Geek USA. Yeah,
Quiet,
those are just
Hummer. Today being one of the big hits, Cherub Rock being on one of the Guitar Hero songs. So I heard Cherub Rock, and I was like, I played this on the PS2 like 10 years ago, and I wrote Guitar Hero 2 or 3. I can't remember. Like, what a great like I said, not my style, but like someone getting into that sound, total recommend.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Like, and I know Billy Corgan's a dick, and I know he shafted, all his musicians throughout his career. He kind of fucked up he had a good thing with the National Wrestling Alliance and then had to fuck it up.
I feel like he's a little bit of a control freak, and I feel like he's kind of like, it's my way or the highway. And with Smashing Pumpkins, I think at some point he was like, this is my band. Like, the band is me and you guys are sidemen, and that pissed them off. And, rightfully so, because James Iha is a very talented songwriter and a musician of his own right. Chamberlain, he's actually got a solo project called the Jimmy Chamberlain Complex, which is kind of jazzier type. Yeah, I mean, you might be into it. Mostly instrumental. Darcy just disappeared. I think there was talk
she was dating the guitarist, correct?
Yeah, her and Eha were together.
They broke up. Yeah, that was part of the May shrine, because drummer was on heroin? ?
Yeah. Yep.
The guitarist and bassist were dating, broke up, and then, I mean, I could not imagine having such a huge hit like their first album and then having to follow up on that. Like, I don't.
Right.
I'm not I'm a musician. I'm not a composer. I play what's on the page and then smile afterwards.
Yeah,
I could not imagine, writing.
Well, and the funny thing is, after this came Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, which is a double album. Corgan, I think, wanted it to be a triple album, but I think, the record company told him no or whatever.
That has a bunch of hits on it too, right?
That's got more of the hits, and I think that's really considered to be their masterpiece or whatever. But I love that album, and it's definitely up there with Siamese Dream. But for me personally, Siamese Dream is just a much better collection of songs. It's just, it fits, and like I said, it was just at a certain point in my life.
Yeah.
So I have this deep connection to it.
It's great. It's one of those albums that, even though I'm not 100% on, I think it's a 10 because it set out what it's like in Asia, right? It sets out what it wants to, and it's a 10.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of Rumors by Fleetwood Mac, but I think it's a 10.
Yeah, agreed.
In terms of, well, when they were done sleeping with each other and doing drugs, what they wanted to accomplish, it's a 10, right? And this album, if this is what was intended, it's, like I said, not my style. I'm not anti it. I respect it. And like all your selections, the Buffalo Tom, the what were the other ones?
Prefab Sprout.
Yeah, Prefab Sprout. I was gonna say the Planned album, but
Lloyd Cole. Yeah.
yeah. Like all I want to do is listen to "You're Living All Over Me" and what's the oh shoot what's the double album? Not Double and Nickels on Dime. Something I learned today. The punk album. Oh shoot! 1 second.
Yeah.
The Husker Du.
Oh yeah.
What's the double album? Arcade Zen.
Arcade. That's it. Zen Arcade. Zen Arcade.
Yeah, I just that's a sound I've loved. Got away from, coming back to, and your interests or your selections have kind of kicked me in the butt to. I gotta drive. Like most days, I have a 45-minute drive, so that's most of Zen Arcade. So let's just do it.
There you go.
Yeah, I was not looking forward to listening to Smashing Pumpkins, and now I'm kicking myself because I was like, this is wonderful. This is
it's really good.
His singing, his playing of tones or timbres, the rhythm section, the guitar solos, which you said was mostly Billy. Just I hope that's
no more to say.
Podcast to just share all the music. I came in with Asia, Duke. What did I do? Asia, Dookie, Queen is Dead, Birth of the Cool, and Songs of the Key of Life.
All excellent choices and all important albums.
Different and all. Yeah. And you came in with selections that are very similar in some cases, but still wonderful. And that's I don't know.
That's what it's all about. And you nailed it. That's what I'm trying to do with this podcast is meet people, get in their head, see what kind of music they're into, share, learn, all the things, because music is life, right?
No, seriously, and I'm not trying to be cheesy about it, but Stevie Wonder came out, Songs in the Key of Life, and then wrote a double album plus a 4-song EP about it.
Yeah, right.
And if you don't like Stevie Wonder, you being the audience, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's what I do want to do with you is I want to do a big podcast on classical music, because I feel like that gets shafted because it's seen as very highbrow, high nose, and it's
I'm gonna have to do some homework for that one, because I know a lot of classical pieces when I hear them. Can I tell you who wrote them or what the actual name of the pieces? No, but
there's a lot of this with classical music.
Yeah, for sure.
As someone from that world, I think there's a lot of just like myths that just need to be dispelled. Like Mozart was a pervert. Wagner hated Jewish people.
Wow.
Things I don't agree with, but they were humans. They were music in a certain style because that was the style. What was the thing from The Simpsons? Bringing the pine cone from the belt. Abe Simpson.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, it was like Abe Simpson on The Simpsons was talking about something about. When he was a kid, he wore a pine cone from a belt. He's like, as was the style at the time. I'm trying to defend it to Bart or whatever, but
right.
No, I mean, these composers were just people in a certain style, and I would love to wax poetically about,
All right, let's plan it.
Certain things, and because I think classical music is seen as it's seen as not approachable or unapproachable.
Yeah,
for a
like
lot
highbrow.
Highbrow,
totally.
and it's not like you have me doing this shit. I say fuck after every word, and I have a playlist of Wagner, followed by the Smiths, followed by Joy Division, followed by, Bruckner, and it's all good.
Yeah.
I would like to just share that music, and I think your podcast, and if you're not into it, that's fine, and we can.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a good episode. And listen, like we said, I like to learn stuff, and this is making me stretch out in new directions too, right? Because people are bringing me things that are challenging and things that I haven't heard before, and I'm into it.
Same thing. I guess I like the Smashing Pumpkins now, and that's cool. And like, I'm not anti anything. We have
never crossed your mind.
Yeah, and that's. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, well, that's good. So I'm happy that we came to that conclusion. Yeah. Well, should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
All right. We'll have to plan the classical music thing. We'll have to put maybe a little bit more planning into what we're going to cover, so I can. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, no big deal.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again, Phil. This has been amazing again.
Love being on here. Love chatting with you.
Love having you.
Yapping, as the kids say. This is 2 hours of yapping. No, not even an hour 30. Okay, good.
Not even. Yeah, we went a little shorter this time. Yeah, I think
ask me about Katie Lied, and I'll extend this.
We'll save that for your podcast, because we have to cover. We're supposed to do Los Gaucho, but
yeah, you and I Los Gaucho with Victoria. It's Asia with Louis. Katie Lied.
Okay.
With Mackenzie, we're doing Countdown to Ecstasy, and I still need someone for Can't Buy Thrill.
Okay.
I want oh shoot. I can't think of his real name. The Dan Vault.
Zamori.
Zamori's. And then with SR, we're supposed to do the reunion albums. I need to finish that up. But I need someone. Can't Buy Thrill with Zamori. But yeah, you and I, Los Gaucho, especially with the what was it? Can't Write Home About You.
Yes.
The new.
What
a great tune.
Yeah.
What's the line? Bitch girls spend their dollar or whatever.
Yep.
Just
I know.
Anyway, that is
we'll get there.
For the podcast. Nice chatting with you as always.
Absolutely. And same here.
Great music and enjoy your week. And
yeah, you too, Phil.
Yeah, enjoy some Miles Davis or whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. Absolutely. All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Bye.